Hello, fine folks, and welcome to Booghy Plays. Today I'm not playing, I'm doing an interview. And my guest today is, well, I think he's the most prolific designer that ever existed in our industry. They call him the Good Doctor. I don't know exactly why. If you have played Tigris or and Euphrates, uh, well, there's some mean things happening there. But I am very happy to have today with me one of our greatest designers, Mr. Reiner Knizia. Welcome, Mr. Mr. Knizia. Um, Welcome to Booghy Plays and welcome to this interview.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me.
How are you feeling tonight? How's the weather in Germany?
The weather is very sunny. We are approaching summer, which is very nice. But I don't mind about the weather because you can play games at any weather. Sometimes the cold winter evenings are even better.
um, you must, but we're going to talk about this. As I say always to our viewers, this interview has two parts. The part they're both about you, but the one is more about your history. The second one is the questionnaire. So we're going to start with the first part, and we're going to go way back. Where were you born, and where did you grow up?
Well, I was born in southern Germany in a small town called Illertissen, and that's where I also grew up and where I went to school and where I invented my first games until I then left to go to university.
I see. Let's do not hurry and take it a bit slower. Um, as childhood shapes one's life one way or the other. You were when you're little. What were did you have any siblings?
Yes, I have two younger sisters.
Two younger sisters, and your parents. What did they do? What were their professions?
My father was an architect, and my mother had her own hardware store, so
Oh,
a shop
oh,
in Illertissen.
she was a businesswoman practically.
Yes, yes.
So you grew up in an intellectual family. Um, having two sisters, how was childhood growing up in that small town in Germany in the 60s, 70s, 70s, right?
Yes, yes. Well, childhood was very good. It was a very protected environment. It was good school system. I actually liked the school and I learned a lot. I wanted to learn a lot. And so all was fine. I wouldn't have had it any other way.
What was, I mean, how was the because every experience as a child, I'm a child of the 90s. uh I in Romania, so computers came a little later. Computer games came a little later. How was growing up when you were a child? What were the activities when you were a child?
Well, you were outside, you made some sports. Uh, there was no internet, there was no email, there was no digital anything. So, with this respect, it was much more a rural life, and I enjoyed lots of books. And I think from my nature, I was always a scientist and I was always inquisitive and I studied a lot. And when I found the right teachers at school, they actually mentored me a lot, and it was a great life. It was a great childhood.
What were your favorite classes when you were a child?
It was essentially mathematics and maybe even more physics, but also chemistry. So the sciences. The one thing I did not enjoy was music, because yeah, that is the responsibility of one of my very early teachers, because he said vorsingen, so everybody had to come out alone and sing a little bit, and he was judging that. And to me, he said, this can no longer be helped. This can no longer help. It's a lost cause. And you go there as a child, as a 6, 7 year old, and you are very easy. And then you get this judgment. And
Yeah.
it stuck with me for the rest of my life. So I still have a complex of singing, and I still moved away kind of from music due to this incident. That's the responsibilities of teachers. This is the one teacher who also told me he saw ghosts coming out of the castle. But in any case, this was the one teacher I would not highlight as having had a good influence on my life. But I had many teachers who had a very profound and very positive and welcome influence on my life.
Who made you fell more in love with the sciences, as you say? In those until you went to high school, and maybe in that time, did you play a lot outside, or you started playing more inside? Did you find games? Did you find board games? Um, what was the when practically did you start finding these games, board games, what we call today board games?
That's a very funny coincidence because in Illertissen, there was not a games shop. The only shop that sold games was the barber shop. He had a shelf with some games there. And so I went there, but I usually couldn't really find a lot of things. I think I annoyed him because I went there, was very inquisitive, wanted all the things explained, but then hardly bought anything. And when I didn't find the right themes, the right fascinating things I wanted to play, I made them myself just to play with my friends.
And what was the age when you started finding these games?
I mean, I've always played, but I probably was 6, 7, 8 years old
8 years old.
when I went there. And my first designs were at that age, probably 8, with castles and rivers and knights going along, car racings. I saw a movie, I very much remember, I saw a movie where the culprits tried to escape over the border. And so immediately I drew a map with the border control and the motorway going there and the policeman, and you could roll the dice and try not to have him escape. It's what you do. I mean, it's thematically driven. You're fascinated by a theme, and then you put it there, and it's simply for either to experiment myself. I played a lot of games just by myself, or to play with my friends. There was lots of statistics involved. I remember that I had lots of different cars, and I had tubes they ran through, and I made statistics. How far did this one run? And if I kind of spin it in the one way, how far did it run then? So it is all the mathematician and the physicist and all these things came up. I don't think you can essentially escape your calling. It just comes out.
That probably, that's true, yeah. And if you have the right environment which grows, which helps you, that I think it's even better. So when you were a child, did you play a lot with your parents? Did your parents have an influence on you playing games?
This is the one thing which I regret a little bit because my parents, as I mentioned, were business people and they didn't have the time to play with me. They always said, well, or my father always said, well, go and play with your friends. I think he did not understand that it makes a difference if you play with the friends or with the parents. So parents did not have much time for me of playing. That
Yeah,
was unfortunate.
yeah. So there were no I don't know, weekends or days during the holidays or something like that when you were playing together. No,
Very, very
really.
rarely. Later, when we got older, we played a little bit of the traditional card games and so on, but never really the board games or anything I did as designs.
Um. So, I suppose you went from. How is the relationship? Did your sisters play with you? Did you have a good relationship with them?
No, initially we did not get on very well. The age difference was a bit bigger, and I was a quiet person. I wanted to learn. I wanted to study. And my younger sister always wanted to play disco music, and that annoyed me a lot. And that again stayed with me today. I don't like the disco music and the rhythm, which interferes with my peace and with my own heartbeat. So I mean, as you say, you take things from childhood, and you are questioning things very intelligently to bring out not only the positive things but also those things which you take with you from childhood. So that wasn't the relationship of playing a lot together. That once you get grown up, it changes. But the childhood was more with my friends, mainly male friends, yes, because at that time they had us, they dissected, or they separated the pupils into girls and boys, yes.
Yeah, it was an all boys school which you
Yeah,
attend.
yeah. I mean, initially when I went for the first years, it was different houses. There was a boys' school house and there was a girls' school. Yes.
Yeah.
The only thing we had together was the religious courses, because I was a Protestant, and so there were very few Protestants because Bavaria is essentially Catholic, and so the very few girls and boys could then enjoy a joint session of religious education.
And then in those times, then girls ran for boys, boys for girls, and made it for a more interesting class, probably.
Yeah, that changed when I went to higher school, because then the class is mixed, and I think that makes for a much better atmosphere, more balanced atmosphere, and you learn more for life.
Of course. High school, you did it in the same town, I suppose.
Yes.
Well, did you started because you started to creating games since you were, you say, 6, 7, 8, and you must have had some guinea pigs to test. Did you have a lot of friends which you played with?
Yeah, I mean, these are school colleagues. We played. I had one friend I only played speed chess with because we really loved that, and I had other friends we played other games with, and of course there were lots of outside activities. So the board gaming wasn't such a dominant part of my life, but it was always a big interest. Yes.
And when you say, was football a big thing when you were a child? Also, did you play a lot of football or any other sport?
Um, I wasn't a good soccer or football player, but I was very fast. So essentially, if I failed the first time, I could turn around, run after him, fail the second time, run after him. So I was in defense. That somewhat worked, but I essentially became a track and field athlete, and I once at least became in the small pond the Swabian champion of 400 meters.
Oh,
So man, as I said, it's small pond, but it's that was the sport I liked, the running, and I was never fast enough for the 100 meter, but the 400 meters I could do.
oh yeah. The 400-meter is not an easy one, and usually when people train for these, they do multiple 400 meters, and they kill you. 400 meters kill you. Uh,
Yeah.
so when do you still run today? Do you still try to keep up with trying to keep up the figure?
Yes, I'm still running, either by myself or with my wife. We pull each other up to do some exercise. I think that's very important. Of course, I'm not running these enormous distances I ran before, but I think it's important, as the saying goes, in a healthy body there's a healthy mind, and vice versa. So it's
Yeah.
exercise. Even so, I spend most of my time at my desk in the studio and in front of the screen. Um, it's something I still enjoy, and something that still drives me out, and actually makes me feel better.
True that. True that. So you went from in high school, I suppose the interest in sciences continues. So I only can suppose that you went to university studying one of these sciences. What did you study in university, and where did you study in university?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll make a little bridge from high school still, because I had, as I already pointed out, I had some very good teachers who really took me aside and helped me and mentored me. I remember my physics teacher. I visited him at home frequently, and we actually looked at mathematics and at physical things which both interested us. So that was, I still remember the sessions. That was really great. And my other physics teacher then allowed me to go into the experimental room in the school, where all the devices are, where you do the experiments and you prepare that for the classes, and the teachers were there. And so I was allowed to go in there, and I could do my own experiments. Sometimes I actually then presented them in the class. So I think I was really very engaged in this, until the school director came along and said, "What are you doing in here? You are not insured. Get out." And he locked me out. This was the other teacher, the director, who did not really help me, because he was a legal person, and the legal business does not promote people. So with this respect, it was towards the end of my school life. And so I decided, now coming back to your question, I decided that my favorite subject was physics.
Physics.
And when I went to university, I said, finally, because that teacher who nurtured me and mentored me so much, he could never really explain the question I had about relativity theory. There were some things that bugged me, and I could not work them out, and he couldn't work them out either. So I said, okay, finally, I come to university, and now I will learn all these things which I wanted to know but couldn't work out myself.
um, in these years until you went to university, did you start designing more, or you are still in the uh, trying phase?
Um, at university, I was very much engaged with the studies, first of all. And I, after half a year, switched from physics to mathematics. I had a friend from school. He went to the same university. It was Ulm. It's just north of Illertissen, and at the University of Ulm,
Beautiful
he
town.
studied mathematics. Sorry?
It's a beautiful town.
Oh, you know it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. It has a very high dome, and it has a river Danube going through it. So it's a nice town. Yes. And so I said, in physics, I probably need a lot of mathematics. So I'll study that with you, because mathematics I liked as well. So I went into all his mathematics classes, and I went to the physics classes. But the disappointment came about at the end of the first semester, when we came to relativity theory. And I found, now finally comes the big revelation. But I did not understand it in the lectures. So I went to the tutor and said, "Come on, explain that to me. This has been bugging me for years. How does this work?" The tutor has to give up. So I have that in front of my eyes. It's a true story. So the assistant says, the tutor says, "I'm not sure. We need to," after half an hour, I had him confused. So he said, "Let's go to the assistant. The assistant will know." So we went to the assistant, and after a conversation in his room, he was confused and couldn't answer it. So then he said, "Okay,
Let's go to the teacher.
I can get us to the professor." So I remember us three going to the professor, knocking at his door. He says, "Okay, I have time, come in." We sat around his table, and we discussed and discussed, and in the end, he gave up. And that was an enormous disappointment for me, that I said, physics, he cannot even do the mathematics which is needed to solve that. And so I decided, well, don't take that the wrong way. I mean that very positively, but I thought physics is really a systematic guesstimating and estimating, but it's not exact. I want something exact. So I switched to mathematics. And so, with this respect, I really engaged in mathematics. I found a wonderful professor with whom I wrote my thesis later as well, and who also, because he also was a professor in America, he took me with me to America, and I got my master's degree there. And it again, university time was just wonderful. It was the old uh, story. Went for walks with my professor, and we discussed mathematics. We discussed the work we did. I think he appreciated the work I did for him. He was very demanding, and very few people went to him because they were fearful of being over so to speak charged, but I wanted to learn, and so it was wonderful. He had a lot of time, and it was I once read the double helix, the invention of the DNA. It's a nice book, and it describes the same atmosphere of a few students, gifted students, working with the professors and really making breakthroughs, and that was a wonderful time. And as you asked, the main focus at that time was really on
On
university
university,
life.
yeah.
I became an assistant relatively quickly, and I gave my own little lectures there, which I enjoyed for a while. I could not imagine to ever leave, to say, the ivory tower. Um, of course, on the side, we played a lot, and I then started to publish my own Play by Mail magazine, which, before email, you had to write your answers for the games, and you sent them by post. I put all the results into the magazine and then sent out the magazine. The games we played in the Play by Mail magazine, which was called Postspion, were all designed by me, and they were done in a way so that hundreds of people could actually play in it, because it was a big marketplace and a big election game, big development game, where you could start a car racing, or just do the tires, or just work on the engines, or be a manager for the drivers. So it was a very big marketplace, and that was quite a main focus for me at that time on the gaming side as well.
That is during university, right?
Yes, that was
During
during the
university.
university.
Um, so you are still practically doing stuff, but not as much as you did afterwards. Um, did you during this time, and you sound very passionate about your time in school and about your time in
Oh,
university.
yes.
um,
I was very lucky. Yes, I had a very good time in both.
and usually usually people who are very passionate, they start working in um oh, I struggle with term in English, cercetare. Um, you you start to, if someone can help me with cercetare in English, because I kind of missed the term right now and I don't know why. So let me research. Oh, thank you, Adrian. Thank you. The people start working in research, usually. And they dedicate their life to research, to even more and more and more. Uh, did you did you end up doing this? Of course, being or did you end up on the road of being a professor?
I never became a professor. I was an assistant. I gave lectures and I did some research, but I had, uh, with respect to my professional career, first of all, outside of gaming, um, I had another big shift when I met a board member of a big bank. This board member actually came to university, and he taught the soft skills. So how to make decisions, time management, um, how to hold meetings. And this is something where he said, look, all this research and science is one thing, but you also need the practical tools. And I was very much taken by that. And even so, I then looked at, after I decided I will leave university, through this impression, there is more to life than university for whole life. So I looked around at various employers and eventually ended up in his bank. And this was a good move because it gave me an insight into IT. I worked on the IT side for a while, but also into the finance side, which is always good, and also in the organizational department. So how to analyze processes. It's a good, very good background as a businessman to get some of this banking background. Yes. So that was the shift away from university. The shift on the gaming side was that during my university time, it was the first time that I went to Essen. Essen is a big consumer fair in Essen, in middle Germany, if you want. And it was
it big
the
back then?
first time.
Sorry to interrupt you. Was it big back then? Because it started in the 80s, right? So you were there from the beginning, or a few years
on? It started out at a little school. As a small convention. I wasn't there, but then for the first time it went actually into the big fairground in the Gruger halls. I was there for the first time, and it was quite big. It was quite a few halls, and it just opened up a world for me because, as I said, it was pre-internet, pre everything you could get digital, which people take for granted today. So suddenly a completely new door was opened. I saw all these games. I saw all these publishers. I found out that there are other magazines you could read, and I met some Munich I lived in Munich at that time. Some Munich publishers. One of them was Bernd Bonhoeffer, the boss of a very small publishing company called Hans im Glück. Hans im Glück, of course, has grown over the year. And my first game was actually done with Hans im Glück. And he was small, I was small. We learned from each other. Of course, I learned more from him. And then he grew, and I grew. And yes, there's still a friendship there, even though he's retired, lives in Spain, enjoys the warmth there. But of course, the company goes on with his son.
Okay. Hello, Spenny, and welcome. You can ask your question, and we see if I can translate it to the interview that we're doing here. So you went to Essen. That's in the 90s when you went there. So it was it was some time.
It was late 80s actually, because my first real games came out 1990, and so I must have had the contact before. It was in the 80s.
Okay, so it is probably a way smaller than it is now. So you started to work in a bank, as you said. Now you started to work more in the board game. You started more to design. When did the trigger was to, I want to design more, I want to pursue more of this? When this triggered?
My career in banking was very successful, and after a few years I was in a big strategic project with McKinsey, and then after a few years I went to England because at that time, England had, or Great Britain, I should say, had problems with recession, and the house prices fell dramatically. And the bank had a subsidiary there which was run purely by Englishmen or British. And so the bank got very nervous and said, we have so many losses there. I think I'm allowed to say that after so many years, we need somebody whom we know, and so they sent me. And so we got the whole services and the whole customer service department in-house because it was done externally, and that didn't work because you couldn't really control it. It was a fascinating job for me, and it was a company with 300 people, and it was a business of about 2 billion pounds of new business every year. So it was a big job. On the other hand, with Essen and with Hans im Glück and with the first games out, also with Hans im Glück, I published Modern Art, one
Yeah.
of my
Yep.
classics, and that won the German Game Prize, which opened a lot of doors. And so I soon found myself at this crossroad, which you are mentioning and saying, I have a very successful start of my
Career as
career
a board game or designer.
in
Yeah.
and board game designer, and also in my management career. And I'm a person who does not do several things, so to speak, but I like to do one thing really, really intense and properly. And so it was quite an intense thinking process. Which direction do I go? Because I kind of felt I cannot do both anymore when I want to further the career on one side or the other. And so essentially, I came to the conclusion I follow my heart and leave the money behind me, which is not quite true, and decided to decided to retire, yes, to retire into game designing. Retirement kind of failed because game designing soon became as busy as the management job. But I've never regretted this decision, and I really found my calling and found my home in the games. I've loved the university, I've loved the research, the mathematics, I loved the banking side, I loved managing the company, but where I really found my home and where I really feel energized is the game design.
I think modern art is practically your biggest hit, right? It was the game that put you on the map. It came out in 1992, so quite a while ago. You have designed over I don't know, hundreds, over 700 games, over
800 in the
800
meantime.
games over the years. But the one that modern art is one of those who's stuck and who is still known and has different iterations and so on and so forth. Um, well, you started you started on this road. Was it how many until you started? How many designs did you put in the drawer until then?
Yeah. Uh, There is this saying, I think by Malcolm Gladwell, if I'm not mistaken, who says, in order to become a master, you need to put in 10,000 hours if you want to play the violin or if you want to be a tennis player. And I think it's also for game design. I put these 10,000 hours in quite early. So when my real products came out, the boxes, at the same time in 1990, a book came out. And the book had dozens of designs in them, which you could all play, and the book is still out, which you could all play with standard game materials. And so it showed that I had a very rich repertoire, several folders full of uh, rules and game descriptions, which I could use, which I could build on. Not all of them were publishable, and some of them in a book, you spend 2-3 pages. They don't have to have the same depth and the same pulling power than a game you put in a box. Not saying it's not a good game, but it's maybe a bit more narrow. And so the repertoire was there. But of course, doing a professional game design and building them to, as I say, perfection is something else than just building games which you want to play with your friends.
Uh, so as answering my question, you designed a lot before you had those published games. A lot means a lot. 10,000 hours is a lot. A lot of failing in the end, and probably a lot. Did you have any issues failing?
Um, I never saw myself as failing. It's a normal design process. Some of the games work, and some of the ideas do not fly, and it's not falling in love with the ideas which do not fly. Yesterday in our play testing, we played 3 different games, and one of them I came to the conclusion it's not flying. It has lost with every iteration I did. It got worse and it lost its focus and direction, and so I'm putting it aside, and I will focus on these which fly and which represent the quality I want to put out with my name on the games. Yes, so it's. I think Edison said every time the light bulb didn't work, I learned how the method that did not work, and it's a natural way. I mean, you cannot kind of criticize yourself for not making all your ideas fly. That's unrealistic. Yes, so it's picking the best ones and getting some good results. That's
Yeah.
important.
Welcome, Board Game Animal. Greetings to you also. Um, so you are I would call him a designer of usually lighter midweight games, which are very mathematical, which are very well enclosed in one way or the other. Um, uh, do you take a mathematical approach on your games when you build them, or you add it afterwards? You start from an idea, you start with a matrix underneath, and then you build something. How do you work?
No, I neither start with mathematical schemes, nor do I put the mathematics in later. You see, there are different types of designers. I am more a scientific designer. Some other people are more storytellers. And so this is fascinating for our industry because we are all unified by the love for the product, which bring a lot of enjoyment to different people. And so it's not my deliberate approach, but it's just the background which what we study, how we live, our experience shape how we see the world and how we the pattern how we interpret the world. And so what I like about games is that they have very clear rules and that they don't have an overburden in administrative parts. Nobody likes bureaucracy, and they can appear in games as well. So I like to have clear rules which, when I have a role like a pharaoh in Egypt, I want to understand intuitively what can I do. So I don't want to play the system. I want to be motivated by the theme, and that theme I want to kind of understand how my actions fit into this world. This I do not need to do with a long description, but with some kind of basic understanding. These are the actions. This is what I'm doing in the world. I keep it simple, and I want to give people a very quick approach to the games. Also, time has changed, and not nobody, but lots of people want to play shorter games, quick access, enjoy it, play the next game. And so that's what also resonates with me. And so I try to design these types of games. Of course, I design for very different publics, and there are children's games. There are also deeper games or longer games. But it's always this no overburdening with too many differentiated rules. When I write up the rules, it's another test for my design. Do I really need to have a whole paragraph of describing this tie break situation? Why can't I make it simpler? So when the rules get too long, I know I need to still kind of fine tune and shape the game.
You have your own company and you work practically with your own company, uh, and you are the main designer. You are the main developer, I suppose. Do you when you design, at some point, a design always goes left, goes right, goes on top, somewhere it goes. How do you know when to put that developer hat on and say, this left is not good, this right is not good, I'm going too far with this one?
It's experience, and it's play testing. I mean, of course, you always start with closing, or I always start with closing my eyes and imagining the game situation. Why is my turn exciting? What am I doing if others take their turn? So I essentially play the game in my mind. And when I have an idea which fascinates me and I'm convinced of it, it works perfectly in my mind. But then comes the moment of truth, and the first prototype will be done. It comes on the table, we play it. And playtesting with others is the lifeblood of game design. You cannot calculate and plan for game fun, and games are about fun. You need to experience it, and you need to then, in an iterative process, I believe, go step by step. Now, you asked me, when do I think I've overstepped the mark, or when do I think it doesn't fly? I have by accident, I have a system which works very nicely with this respect, because before the pandemic, I had 50. Now I have 100 different drawers. In each drawer, there is a game idea. And it became 100 because I couldn't test, so I had to fill. I had more, needed more drawers. I'm not short of ideas. I'm more cursed by ideas. I have too many ideas, and when the ideas gets discussed, and I think it flies, and I have done some research and kind of get as close as a first prototype, or at least I see the path to it, then it gets a drawer. The point is, nobody can work on 50 or 100 games at the same time. Of course, I work as more than one game, but there are so many. These are all my children, and they're all crying for being fed. And as it happened yesterday in the playtesting, I have two games which really worked well. We made some minor changes. I will think about them for the next playtest, and I will optimize them. And the third one fell behind. It fell so dramatically behind that I actually think I will just leave it. I will just give up on it. But very often, the process is more natural in a way. It's not the hard decision. Do I go and kill my child? Forgive me for this picture. So it is these two games I'm so enthusiastic about. I want to see how the changes we have discussed and I've come up with and observed, how they work next playtest. The third one, I said, okay, I need to think about that. So it will be in one of the drawers. And then half a year later, I will discover, oh, this is still there. I have never come back to it, because, you know, the games which work and which fly are always in the foreground, and those which do not make it fall into the background. So there's not the aware decision like it happened yesterday, because it was such an obvious case. They fall behind, and then I say, okay, there's one which I haven't played for half a year, and so it gives you the right distance to it. And what I then also do, it's a long answer now, is every quarter of a year I can now afford to take 2 weeks and go to a place away from the operational business and really just work on deeper designs. And then I would take some of these which have been left behind and see, do I give them a new push because I have a new view at them, and sometimes you get too close, or do I just say, okay, let them rest, and then empty the drawer because there are better ideas who are waiting for the drawer?
Yeah, were you ever in a situation that you had ideas in a game that you really loved and you think is going to be great, but I have to cut it? I had to cut it because it's a bit too much.
I don't have to cut it. The point here is, and when I talk about my children as games, there is some similarity here, because you cannot force a child to go somewhere. A child, you can only help it to fulfill its potential. And it's the same with the games. I mean, if I start out with a card game, I don't have to insist it becoming a card game. If it needs a board, it gets a board, and it meanders along. And sometimes there are drastic changes from one side to the other. Sometimes it's more straightforward. All I want is a brilliant game, but I don't force it in a certain way. Why should I make it more difficult for me? I let it grow, and I help it grow, and I look at the potential, and otherwise I'm open. Unless it is according to a brief, when I make a Lord of the Rings game or I make a Star Wars game, then of course there's a much narrower range of opportunities. You need a lot of experience to do these things, and a lot of time, enough time, realistic time to work on such games. But that's one side. So usually it's a free design, and only at the end, when the game is finished, I would then decide who is the right publisher for it. Of course, I have the experience to see this goes in a direction which cannot be published, which is not good for the market. Then I will change before that. But otherwise, I don't have to. I don't have to go. If I'm convinced of it, I let it go. And if I'm not convinced of it, why should I?
Okay, so you see yourself as a good player, so enough of a good player that you know what works and what does not work for players, in order to know how to put that developer hat on.
No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, I'm guessing what the right way is, but usually it all happens through playing and discussing with the playtesters. And I have a vast range of different playtesters, so we get lots of different views. I play with people today, then I play with people tomorrow, and it's different groups. So I see different approaches to the game, because my games, I want them to be a platform where people can go on and enjoy themselves, and each player can bring their personality in there, and they're not strangulated by bureaucracy and fixed rules, but it's open enough so that you have different approaches. There's not one way to winning.
Yep.
Yes, and so it's trying out, and it's letting it grow, and also listening to lots of good ideas from my playtesters who are all very experienced.
Yes. So you're talking about playtesting. How many playtests until a game gets released? Depending on the game, of course, bigger, smaller, but
Yeah.
on average.
If I'm very, very, very lucky and the game goes very straightforward, you start with it, you have it, you put it on the table, say, this works exactly how I want it, and fine tuning a bit, then sometimes 20 playtests are fine. Usually, I think it is more in the direction of 50 playtests. It depends how much the game meanders. If the game lies for a few months and then gets picked up again, if I stay with it, it can be finished in half a year. More realistic is a year, and sometimes if the game pauses, I mean, modern art needed about 3-4 years to get out into the final version. Yes, but it's not constantly every day. It lay there, and then I had to think about it again, and so then I showed it to no, at that time not, but usually then you show it to publisher, it comes back, you think, okay, let's play it again. Why did he not take it? And it takes its time. But 20 is very lucky, straightforward. Sometimes you have a lucky shot. Sometimes it takes many, many, many playtests. But as long as it's fun, it's okay.
Mr. Knizia does not see all your questions. I'm gonna ask some of them.
No, I have to say I do not see the broadcast. I only see a still here. So if questions pop up or if people are in there, I would not see that. So I'm completely blind. I'm just talking to the camera. I don't see anything else.
Yeah,
because the technical stuff got too complex.
yes. But I'm gonna ask them. There's a question. How do you know that the rules? How do you how do you make rules in a way that rules do not become? So do you know from rules that a game might have a problem when you do the rules for it?
The rules help me to see if, when I write up the rules, if some of the rulings in the game are too complex or also too confusing. I would sometimes write up the rules in detail before the first playtest, because the writing of the rules helps me shaping my ideas and helps me organizing the ideas. So I mean, when I say I sometimes write them up, that means I type them. Usually it's a handwritten 1 or 2 pages where the rules are described exactly, and that means I can also go back later. I will never forget. I have notes next to every playtesting, so I can go back to different versions and see what we played and why it worked and what my reasons were to do it. So the rules writing is always important to streamline it and to see how simple I can actually present
Oh,
the game.
and there's another question. When you have an idea, do you develop it in your head, or do you write everything down and then write more until you do a physical prototype?
The first things happen in the head. So I'm trying to find some kind of a new entry point so that I have a chance to make something innovative. What's new about this? Where do I want to go? And once I found something, then I would either we discuss it or I would think about it. And once I have, so to speak, the broad shape in my head, then I would write down the rules, and then I would the writing of the rules helps me to get to the nitty gritty bits, to the smaller bits, and see if something is missing. It sometimes get the idea and say, okay, how do I solve this? There's lots of little decisions to be taken when you write the rules, and it just helps to concentrate the mind and get the thing whole. So it's not just a fizzy idea, it's really on paper. And even if I gave it to somebody else, they could play it for the first time, even if it hasn't been played yet.
Um, so now the so we are very limited. So I still have a lot of questions to ask you. So I would have wanted to ask you if we could push it 10 or 15 more minutes. Is there a possibility? Because I still have some questions that I want to ask. Uh,
Well, unfortunately, I am booked for in quarter of an hour for my next meeting. My day is usually quite
uh
packed. And I also think that any listeners will soon fall into a coma if it
No,
goes
no.
too long. The shorter, the better.
No, there are a lot of things which I still want to ask you, and one of it is, do you do when you start designing? Do you start to design with player count in mind? Do you start to designing? Oh, I want this to be a two-player. I want this to be or it develops while you design.
Number of players is completely irrelevant. Age is completely irrelevant. The only thing that is relevant is I want to design a really good, fascinating, inspiring, exciting game. And then everything else can be rounded off and decided.
Marcus says it's very interesting. So the discussion he finds it very interesting. It's not too long. So the when you're when you how do you approach replayability and randomness? Let's go first to replayability. How do you approach replayability in games and your designs?
Well, we play tested, so it's we will playing is the proof of
Well,
everything. And
why
if
am I? There are two ways of building. One is you build a game that is reliant a lot of on players and what players are doing, and there is another way when you build enough things into the game where I don't know different starting cards, different starting ways, and so on. You understand what I'm saying? Which is the way you think, or how do you think about replayability when you start designing?
I'm trying not to have a fixed methodology. So it's not the one way is not better than the other. I'm trying to have a great variety in my different designs. And so sometimes I would choose this and sometimes the others. This is exactly the point why I think game design is not a science, even though I'm a scientist. It's an art. And therefore, give up the methodology of saying I always approach it in this way, because if you trample along the same path always, you come out at the same end. And I want to come out at new ends. I want to get really, really innovative new designs. So I'm trying to get challenges, sometimes from outside through do a cooperative Lord of the Rings game. It was a big challenge before the real cooperative games actually were established. So I love this because it challenges me to leave my, as people so often say, comfort zone, and have to reinvent myself. I cannot live on the laurels of the 90s where the classics appeared, or the 2000s. The world has changed, and people they expect to have relevant games for them today. And so this is a big challenge. And so I want variety, and I refuse follow this methodology. Yes, that's
Of
very important,
course.
I think. Otherwise, you become
Yes,
stale.
yes. I'm just asking the questions. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, no, that's exactly what I say. Yes, so it's quite important
um,
to stay fresh.
and how do you approach randomness in your games? What is randomness to you, and how far can you go with it?
Yeah. Uh, well, there are games which have no randomness in them at all. I think people like chess or Go, uh, people don't really like it that much. It becomes very brainy. Of course, people is a black and white thing, but the general public usually wants some randomness, if not only for the statement at the end. Oh yes, I lost. I was unlucky, and oh yes, I won because I was the better player. So you need the randomness for variability and also to kind of give people not only the brain, but also kind of an intuitive play, what they want to do. I think as a mathematician, it helps me to have an intuitive feeling for probabilities and what happens when, what is rare, what is not rare. But again, there are different types of games. Some of mine are very much luck driven, and that as a party game is fine and accepted. And others are have very little randomness in them, but usually they have some because I think the market wants it.
What do you think about it? Do you want perfect information as a scientist? Do you want perfect information when you play a game?
Um, Usually, I don't like perfect information because it invites people to think a lot and try to work out the best solution. And if you have to take some randomness and some unforeseeable things into account, then you cannot calculate the world. The world is not determined, and the game should also, in my eyes, not be determined.
Okay, okay. So, are you a gamer today? Do you play games outside the ones you usually play?
Um, no,
Do you
because
design?
whenever
Sorry,
I find some victims, whenever sorry.
outside the ones that you design. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, I understood. No, because whenever I find some victims to play with, I have all these drawers and all these children crying to be fed, and this is always what I most curious about. So it's very rare, but it also has the advantage. Of course, I need to know what happens in the market, but it has the advantage not to know too many things what other people do in detail. As a designers, there are many brilliant designers, because I want to find my own way. And once you know a solution, the brain has it much, much harder to find an innovative new solution. If you don't know a solution, it comes much easier. And so I make it easy for me. I make a virtue out of this necessity that I don't have the time to play lots of other games.
But do you have, by any chance, other designers which you enjoy one way or the other?
Um, I don't know enough about the other people's designs so that I can really say this one is a master. It's there are some fundamental new developments like collectible card games where when they were introduced, you would think everything has been done with cards, and then comes the deck building design and so on. So there's great innovation everywhere, and I more see the systems which are coming up, but less, so to
The
speak, the
designers.
works
I
of a
see.
designer.
And how do you approach artwork on your games? Do you you have any do you talk with artists? Or do they do their jobs and you do your job?
I don't have a direct relationship with artists usually because I write my rules not for the public, but for the publisher. And I do my prototypes with clip art, so simple artwork to show how the prototype should look like. But usually it's not clear where the game will be published. And each publisher have their own style of writing rules and have their own artists and their own graphical style. And so I cannot provide this. This is then done by the publisher. There are some exceptions, for example, with El Dorado, I decided for the first time in my career to sponsor and finance the graphics, because I understood that this deck building game with a board and so on needed a lot of different graphics. And when I wanted to publish the game in different smaller markets, these publishers would not be able to finance it and it would not be effective. So I said, I will finance the graphics initially and then make them available to every publisher. And that would promote reaching many more markets. But that was an
Oh,
exception,
okay.
yes.
Okay, because we are hurrying, and I'm sorry because we are hurrying, I cannot ask all the people's questions. Um, do you? I suppose you have a lot of work on pipeline, and we have to. We'll wait for those. I suppose you are going to yeah, to design more and more. You are not stopping, right?
No, I have no intention to stop. This year we are celebrating our 40 years anniversary of Knizia Games, and if the universe lets me, I'll do another 40 years, and if I may, another 400 years. But we'll see.
I still had some more questions, but I'll have to stop right now. Um, I'll ask one more questions. Are you particularly happy or proud of a design, or do you consider them your children and you love them all at the same rate?
Do you have a favorite child? No, they have all got their own personality. And of course, some of them stand out more, and some of them have actually stood the test of time, and some have been there for a while. And then you have to say, okay, time moved on, and they're no longer so relevant. But that's a normal point. So I can pick probably hundreds of them and tell you what I find the real nice characteristics of this game or of that game, and what fascinates me is with respect to a new aspect of it or some innovation in it. Yes, but that would fill a whole other hour just to go over a few of them. You could shout the individual games at me, and I could answer what I personally see as the innovative part, which fascinates me in
I
this
see.
child.
We do not have the time for that. And can you tell us rapidly how is your work? How is your day from morning till night? How is it? How can you talk through your day, please?
Yeah. I'm an early bird. I have always been an early bird. So usually the alarm clock goes off at 4 o'clock in the morning, which gives me the peace of preparing things and being ready for the day. Of course, I have built a wonderful team around me who look after the licensing and the operational side of the business, so that I still have the time to do what I can do best, and that is design games and that not get drawn into day-to-day business too much. And then, of course, there will be some team meetings and there will be some aspects of operational business, of licensing, contacts with publishers. And
Interviews.
then in the afternoon, interviews as well, yes, and bureaucracy and all these things that happen as well. But and then there's playtesting, and so sometimes I prefer the playtests in the afternoon, but sometimes or some of the evenings are filled with playtesting, which go up to 10:30. So this can be very long days, and the more time I have for designing and playtesting, the happier I am, and the more time I spend on bureaucracy, tax forms, and what or not, the unhappier I get. Yes.
And you call your day at what hour?
Sorry.
Your day call at what hour you say good night?
Well, if we are testing in the evening, then it can be 11 o'clock, yes, which
Oh.
is then a very long day. But if I'm not testing in the evening, I go to bed earlier. I might sometimes be in bed at 8 o'clock, yes, and sometimes at 9 o'clock, because I need a reasonable amount of sleep to be fit and creative. So lack of sleep is not
Not. Okay.
reasonable.
And now I will go directly into our questionnaire. Um, what? So it comes from Proust, like I said, and it's going to be very fast. So you have to answer really fast. And it starts
Okay.
with my first question, which is, what is your favorite word?
17.
Cool. What is your least favorite word?
The one which starts with F, four-letter word, and which sometimes people actually use in book titles and whatsoever, which I don't look at. We don't need this rude language.
What turns you on creatively, emotionally, spiritually?
Being able to think about a new game design and let it appear out of nothing.
What turns you off?
Bureaucracy.
What is your favorite drug?
Tea.
Tea.
No, I should actually say
Chocolate.
chocolate. High percentage chocolate. 80-90% chocolate.
What is your favorite curse word?
Yeah, that's a bit rude. I very often use the word monkey shit.
What sound or noise do you love?
Actually, peace and not hearing anything, completely nothingness.
What sound or noise do you hate?
You know it, disco with me.
Which profession outside the one you already do or you did, you would like to attempt?
There are probably many. Difficult, very difficult. Which profession? I think I would go for being a mathematician.
But you did that. Something that you didn't do. You already did that.
Yeah, but I was lucky in my life to always have the choice to choose what I want to do, and I was always convinced that I had the freedom to do that. So if there was something else, like a zookeeper, then you would have to ask me, why have I never been a zookeeper? Yes, so I have that complete freedom.
I'll take zookeeper then. What profession you? I suppose you wouldn't have wanted to be a musician. What
Correct.
profession you would not like to attempt at all?
Bureaucrat. So it's all these bureaucratic tax politician. I think politician.
And the last one, it starts with an if. If heaven exists, what would you expect God to say to you when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Not you again.
Again?
Again, yes.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Knizia, for doing this interview. I hope you had a good time. And I'm going to close this one. I'm going to ask you one more minute to stay with us, and then we're going to let you free.
Yeah. So thank you for having the interview. And as said, if there are more questions which I couldn't see, so I apologize that we weren't able to cover everything. But I think after now everybody is in the coma anyway. So what I can say is, if you haven't had enough, then please take any game and play a game and enjoy the game. And that's the best thing you can do. And then you will discover all the secrets and depths of what is hidden in a design. Enjoy.
Thank you. I want to thank, unfortunately, this was the time that we had. I had some more questions also, but it is what it is. I want to say a big thank you to Mr. Knizia for helping doing this interview. And I want to thank you, everyone who came and watched live. I'll thank anyone who come and watch after the fact. But if you like what you see, please like, comment, subscribe, hit that smash that subscribe button, as we say. There are plenty more interviews like these already on the channel. We have a lot of playthroughs and reviews with those playthroughs. So like, comment, subscribe, and thank anyone who came and watch live. Thank anyone who come and watch after the fact. We'll see you on the next one. And until next time, what it says there, play a lot, play loads, as you Brits say, have fun, and bye-bye, fine folks, wherever in the world you are.